It's Nick on the streets.
Thank you, Brian and Janice. Are you a Chinese soccer fan? Well, if you are, you're going to love this segment. And if you're not, well, how does 1 billion RMB sound? Sounds good, doesn't it? That's the amount Pingan Insurance is giving to the Chinese Super League to become the naming sponsor of the league until 2022. That's right, folks. The CSL already has more than 10 sponsors, but none as generous as Pingan. What does this sponsorship mean to the league? How can Pingan benefit from this deal? Here to help us with the answers to those questions and a few more is ChinaSportsInsider.com's Mark Dreyer. Mark, thanks for taking the time.
No problem.
Mark, what was your initial reaction when you read this headline? CSL inks 1 billion RMB sponsorship deal with Pingan Insurance.
Well, it's an extension of the previous deal, so it kind of makes sense from a lot of corners. When they first signed that original deal, there were several different parties who were vying to take the sponsorship, the headline sponsorship of the CSL, but I understand it was just Pingan on the table this time. It is an upgrade from the 600 million over 4 years from last time up to 1 billion over 5 years. However, there was something that happened last night which perhaps changes things, because the CSL late last night at 10 o'clock released this new rule which basically said that for clubs in debt, which we pretty much assume is all the clubs, to be honest, anyone who signs a foreigner has to pay the same amount that they signed the foreigner for into a development fund. So the days of these $50 million signings of the big headline players pretty much are over, I would say, with perhaps one or two smaller exceptions. So if you're looking at it from that point of view, this is perhaps a bit of a negative for Pingan, because if all the big foreign stars are no longer going to come to China, then that's significant. They're not going to bring as much worldwide attention to the brand. Now, perhaps they're just looking domestically and they don't care, but it's something to consider that they certainly didn't think about when they signed this deal.
They snuck a quick one in. So if they have the budget for 50 million to sign a player, they need to sign a player for 25 million and put 25 million into this development fund?
That's right, but of course, if you're trying to sell, if you're the selling club, why are you going to sell it for 25? You want to sell it to 50, and then they have to spend an additional 50 into this development fund.
Well, a development fund can mean many things. Maybe it's to develop the league in the future. Speaking of which, Mark, there have been some dark times in the CSL. Once upon a time, this was a league with no sponsors, not one penny going towards the league. Do deals like this signify that the league has cleaned up its reputation?
Well, I think we've moved on, light years away from the really dark times of match fixing. There's always fans complaining that this goal was a little bit dodgy, but I think you get that in every league around the world.
I've heard black whistle as an expression.
Yes, I mean, that was something from those dark days where people, players and managers and executives and referees all went to jail because of it. So we've definitely moved on from that, and I think the fact that the sponsors are returning and are paying these sorts of sums shows that the reputation of the league is much, much better than it was in the past. Yes, there's still some progress to be made, but things are going in the right direction.
Finally, Mark, I want to leave you with this. Last year, the government unveiled plans for lifting the nation's professional leagues, which includes the CSL. They want the levels to be world-class status. On the field, they might have some ways to go, but are starting to figure out the off-the-field aspect of it. Is that correct?
Well, it's a good question. I'd actually argue that perhaps it's a longer way to go off the field. Some of these changes that are pretty much sprung on the CFA from people above, it seems, very much seems to be the case, shows that there's a lot of problems when it comes to the governance of the game. We've seen a lot of big spending, stupid money really being spent on some of these foreign salaries, when it would be much better to spend the money on infrastructure, youth academies, just basic training facilities would all help the game. So these rules are designed to kind of crack down on this unnecessary spending, but the way they go about it shows that there's still a long way to go off the field and as well as on it. But I don't want to end on a negative note. Things are moving in the right direction, so that's a good thing.
Well, Mark, if we want to end on a positive note, we are standing outside Gonti Stadium here, where Beijing Guan plays its home games. How about Beijing Guan this year?
Yeah, they've been doing pretty well. It's always tough to look past Evergrande. They've won 6 titles in a row. I think that, just for any neutral fan would want to see someone else win it. Whether it's going to be Beijing, I'm not so sure. But, let's hopefully see a new champion this year.
That's Mark Dreyer, founder of ChinaSportsInsider.com. If you liked Mark's comments today, I sure did. Be sure to check out his website for even more details on everything sports related in China. I know he just did a big esports piece, which was really insightful. So definitely check that out. Mark, thanks for taking the time.
No problem. You're welcome.
Janice and Brian, back to you in the studio.